Hey everyone. So you want to learn about SEO. First, welcome to the party. We're happy to have you here. You may be a little late, and the sophistication of the field has come a very long way over the last 20 plus years. So there's a lot to get caught up on that we won't cover in this video. But I promise you, the challenge of SEO is still just getting started. So without further ado, I'm Richard Garvey, the CEO of Different SEO. Let's jump in and learn a little bit about what SEO is and what SEO isn't. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through our deck here, give you a little bit of an overview about what SEO is, and hopefully we can learn a little bit in the process. So let's start in here. First, a very, very brief history about what SEO is. In the beginning, Google was an easy target. So everyone knows, if you have any idea about the background of SEO or the history of keywords and black hat SEO, all you really had to do was have a company, throw what you do on the page a bunch of times, and there was a bunch of tricks and hacks that you could trick Google and get on the first page and into the #1 spot pretty easily. And this was really the case up until about a decade ago, and Google started getting much smarter. But now, as everyone is well aware, Google is a ridiculously intelligent algorithm-based system that there's really no way to fool it anymore. So the question is, what is Google looking for now? That's when we get into this whole craziness of SEO, and everyone has an opinion about what Google wants. You can look at all the different ranking factors, the 200 plus things that Google says are important that people have run studies on and surveys and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of good information out there and a lot of bad information out there. But what does Google actually say they're looking for? Well, this is their mission for search, and this is what we base our understanding and our process of SEO around. Organize the world's information, make it universally accessible and useful. So this is what Google is always trying to do. If this is your intention with your content, you're never going to run into problems with people saying, they got crushed by the algorithm and it ruined all their traffic. They probably were doing something wrong for the most part. But when you see how that maps to what the actual usual things we look at in SEO are, I'll move my face out of the way here. It really boils down to three things. So we talk about organized, universally accessible, and useful. So organized, a very, very quick overview of how search indexes work is they're basically like a library. Every site on the internet is indexed with what they call a sitemap, and the site architecture breaks down how that is built. So you have all these hierarchical levels, and that's how Google understands what is on your page. And the navigation and internal linking is also a way that Google understands what pages are connected, what topics you cover, and all that fun stuff. So the first thing is making sure that is indexed and organized. The second part is universally accessible. This is where technical SEO comes into play. So things like meta tags, alt tags, schema markup. This is where you're going to be looking at site performance. Is the page fast? Does it load correctly? Is there any moving parts that are causing a bad user experience? ADA compliance. When you look at how the page reads to people that are visually impaired, how can they pull the information out of there? Google is very high on that. And then we again look at that hierarchical structure about the accessibility. And then usefulness. So this is where the searcher's intent comes into play. Everything you do has to be around your user. So you're really speaking to two audiences, Google and your user. And if you only focus on the user, you're never going to get in trouble. If you only focus on Google, that's where people run into issues. So the two things on there, the few things on there are having a friendly interface, the content must match the intent, the trusted sources, and that leads to this document right here on the right side. It looks very boring as an image on a PowerPoint, I know, but this is a snapshot from the Google Search Evaluators Guidelines, the search quality rating. This is a 175-page document that Google gives to hundreds or thousands of people. We don't really know exactly how many, but this is how they base their search rankings and their search evaluation of pages. This is a very lengthy guideline that gives you everything you want to look at. So when people say that they have no idea what Google wants and it's the algorithm and it's always changing, it's not entirely true, because there is a very, very distinct and detailed document breaking down everything they're looking for on the page. I highly suggest reading that if you're really interested in SEO. And this chart here on the bottom is a snapshot of how the page rankings change over time. So you'll see that at the top, there's very little movement. When Google understands what people want, they're going to keep it there for the most part. And that's what you have to target when you're building your content. And on the bottom, you'll see that they're always constantly giving people opportunities to move up and down. And the reason whether they keep going up or they go back down is based on number 3 there, that bottom bullet point, the user feedback loop. So if people don't like the page and they go back, Google says not a good page. If people stay there, if people share it, if people are interacting with it, Google understands that, hey, this might be something worth looking into. And let's move it up the rankings a little bit. So what's next? This is the definition of SEO that we use. It is the process of providing the best possible experience to people visiting your website. We use this definition because it doesn't include any of the possible algorithm changes or technical SEO or anything about that could possibly change over time. This will never change. So as long as this is your main focus all the time, you're never going to get in trouble with Google. And speaking of changing over time, since this is 2021, we might as well cover very briefly what are the big trends going on in 2021. So in May, they've announced that they're having an increased page performance focus as a ranking factor. So they're focusing on the core web vitals. We have another video breaking that down a little bit more. Introduction of passages. Google now allows web pages to rank for certain sections on the page based on search terms. So it is now evaluating content differently on the pages. So Google is getting better at understanding queries with BERT, and now it's better at understanding the pages with the introduction of passages. More zero-click searches. What is zero-click search? Zero-click searches are when you go to Google and the answer is directly in the search result, whether that is a knowledge graph, whether it's an image that's pulled up and you don't have to click on anything, whether that is a featured snippet, whether that is a Google Maps result that you don't have to actually visit any web page to get what you're looking for. This is primarily viewed as a negative thing for SEOs, but we don't view it that way. If it helps the user get the information faster, that's fine for us. And the fourth one is what everyone already knows, that videos continue to surge. It's estimated that up to 82% of all online search by 2022 could be video. This is including YouTube, which is the second biggest search engine in the world, also owned by Google. And that's not interesting or new to anyone. And this is why SEO matters. So you see this very sharp decline. You may think this is page 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not. This is position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the first page, and then you see the second page and the third page all the way down there in the bottom, which get very, very little clicks, if any. So the second part here is how to build an SEO strategy that actually works. And you'll have to stay tuned to find out.